right now is indeed the bull run. Understand now is the right time to build, right time to contribute to the space.
So many layoffs, right? Big names like Kraken, Coinbase, Crypto.com.
Maybe they think like the senior management are too expensive, so they
Right now it's a phase that people are looking for guys that can execute.
Not know how to use the apps, and I'll have to teach them how to download it and how to use it in order to trade, pitting both sides against each other. No, I'm just kidding. And so far, it's been super rewarding for me. Yes, this KOL with the frog meme profile pic looks 100% legit, so I'll follow him.
about crypto and blockchain law, and like anything goes wrong, you go to jail. Like,
Okay, what do we need to follow? The market moves so fast.
I think crypto in the blockchain industry pays higher.
I don't have that insurance. I don't have that gym benefit.
I suppose we all heard about all the North Korean imposters that have recently been reported, right, in the news.
I'm like, dude, that's a red flag, man.
They say they have an office there, but there's actually nobody there. We go there, there's nobody there.
Welcome to Desktop. Today we dive into the rapidly growing yet complex Web3 industry, focusing on the challenges that the HR faces. With its global and remote-first nature, Web3 is reshaping employment models. However, as the sector evolves, we see new challenges arise every time, such as adherence to local labor laws, compensation in crypto, abrupt company closures, and instances of payment issues. We see a lot of them posted on X and other social media platforms. There are other complaints raised as well by people in the crypto industry. But of course, we can delve into these topics. We'll discuss these with our expert panel today. So first, we have Derek Leong. He's the head of legal and compliance at IXWAP. So please introduce yourself, Derek.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for the introduction, Eunice. I'm very glad to be here. As Eunice mentioned, I'm the head of legal and compliance at IXWAP. We are basically a full-service tokenization firm, and we are also proud to say that we are the world's first licensed and regulated decentralized exchange for real-world asset or RWA tokens.
Thank you very much for that. We also have with us Don, who is the founder of Talent Bridge. Hello, Don.
Hello, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Don from Talent Bridge. We are actually a boutique search firm specializing in searches within the Web3 space. Myself have been in the space for about 7 years now. So glad to have the chance to share a bit more about the interesting topics you have today.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Derek and Don. Lastly, we have YC Song from 13 Desk.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm YC from 13 Desk.
YC is with us today, and as well as Don and Derek Leong, to discuss the issues that we face in the Web3 space. So, as someone who's working in the Web3 space, I haven't encountered anything too problematic. I think a lot of people don't share the same sentiments with me. So, I want to ask everyone, what's the current state of the Web3 job market?
Maybe Don, you are a headhunter, so you know what's the current market.
Well, if you were to ask me, I'll say that right now with the incoming bull run, or in fact, a lot of people say that right now is indeed the bull run, right? There's a lot of growth in terms of hiring, right? We're talking about more specialized roles. In fact, roles that we are talking about require you to not just have the passion in, say, Web3 or crypto, but it also requires a said individual to have the necessary understanding of what is, say, for example, what is DeFi, what is ZK rollups, or even more specialized knowledge and experience. So there's a lot of roles right now in the market currently, from my understanding, and happy to share more in depth as well as we go along the topic.
Thank you very much for that. So as of now, there are actually over 9,000 crypto projects in existence, and there are 643,000 crypto-based small businesses who are emerging as we are leaning towards further digitalization. So the growth of crypto startups have been fueled by venture capitalists and others. So right now, I just want to ask the rest, what do you think about the present state of crypto employments? Like, how many people, in estimate, do you think are working in crypto-based firms? And do you think that they succeed, or like all of them succeed?
Well, if you were to ask me, right, I don't think we can have an exact number right now, because I'm sure as we speak, there's a lot of people who are looking forward to build within the space, right? If you have been or have experience, last week was like DEF CON, right, of 2024, right? I was there, and that's like easily 30, 40, 50, more than that amount of founders just in one event. And if I recall, there's like, I think, more than 500 events, side events during DEF CON last week. So there's a lot of builders who are people, I think, that they understand now it's the right time to build, right time to contribute to the space. I think, in my opinion, as someone who is helping startups to hire, there will be a lot of talents within the next 1 to 2 months. There will be a massive shift in the space. I think there's like at least 20 to 30% increment in terms of the hiring need, depending on which stage the startups is at, of course. So yeah, it's the good time to be in right now.
For Derek, since you're working at IX Swap, I want to ask, like, what's the current state of your job market? How do you look for employees, and what's your hiring process?
Yeah, I think so. Right now, we have a team of about 30 across all business functions. As the founders would say, they started off with just the two of them, with just laptops, sitting at home. And we're proud to say, over the past few years, we've grown to a size as large as this. Our team is distributed across the APAC region and some in Eastern Europe as well. So we are keeping true to the ethos of decentralization, and we are employing a remote first working culture. I would say that our team has expanded a lot, especially my team as well, in the legal and compliance department. At the time when I joined the company about almost 2.5 to 3 years ago, there were only a couple of us, but now we're proud to say we're a team of 5 right now. So I would say that overall, the markets are picking up. I believe that we are currently in a bull run. We have been for some time. It's just that now we're probably kicking into alt season. So it's good to see that we've come out of crypto winter, where lots of projects died off. We're hearing of so many layoffs, right? Big names like Kraken, Coinbase, Crypto.com, and also job offer retractions. But we're seeing a lot of that reverse now, right? Everything's booming, everything's great, everything's beautiful.
But we are still seeing layoffs, and then in fact, even the traditional finance like HSBC are laying off 100 over staffs in Singapore. But we still see them hiring. Do Derek and Dawn feel like, maybe they think like the senior management are too expensive, so they lay off them and then hire the newbies?
I personally think, okay, so I think there's a distinction between Web3 and Web2 or TradFi, right? In Web3, I think even throughout the bear market, the fact of the matter is that in general, there's a dearth of talent in Web3. We're seeing not many people have the requisite experience, right? So we have to always import from TradFi, from Web2, right? Those with transferable skills, like I suppose apart from devs, we're talking about non-developer roles, it would be finance, legal, these kind of compliance guys, right? The problem is, I know, being a legal practitioner myself, there are very, very few of us globally. So the thing is, Web3, I think the demand is slightly different from the way we see things in TradFi. And I just saw, I was just looking at a chart today, comparing stock indices against the crypto market. There's a divergence now where you're seeing crypto go exponentially. It's appreciating exponentially compared to the stock market. So I think that's where we're beginning to see a bit of divergence and deviation.
Well, in my opinion, I think that definitely a shift in the market, right? I have because having been doing specifically hiring for the startup space, we do speak with candidates whether they are coming from Web 2 or from Web 3. I think the difference is that now that if we're talking about senior management or like why is there a layoff. I think it's a common practice with startups. A lot of them when or in a new industry when the industry start, right, there will always be influx of talents. There will be people who are passionate, people who are interested, and also people who are okay, I just want to see how the market moves, right, before I decide I want to come in. So the thing is now, although there's still like layoff, you can see news coming out from big names, right? But I think that has not deferred anyone whether to move into the Web3 space. In fact, I've spoken to guys from all sorts of different industry. They are very curious about coming to the Web3 space. How can they develop a career here? Should they come in on a like startup phase, or should they join like a bigger company, for example, like Crypto.com, OKX, Coinbase? Because those guys, despite the layoff or the downsizing or whatever, right, they are still looking to add in quality candidates. When we talk about quality, we're talking about skill-based people who are, able to contribute more than whatever you can see in their conventional resume in that sense. That is what I see, right? We have roles that are not just developer roles like Derek pointed out. There are also like roles that is, looking at institutional sales. That's why you see a movement within a Web 2 to a Web 3 phase, TradeFi to Web 3. I guess that has a slight more, I think, relevance. It allows people to smooth in to the role as well. But if you were to ask me, right, I think right now it's a phase that people are looking for guys that can execute, that can bring more value into what the company needs, than just someone who can strategize and plan. It's all good, but at this phase, when everyone is all about building, you want to make yourself valuable. I would say the ability to execute would be the key to, say, getting a good role or a good opportunity within the space.
Yeah, that's true. I actually covered a lot of Zendesk recently covered a lot of news regarding Kraken laying off 20% of their employees, and like DYDX and Coinbase as well. Like they've been laying off a lot of employees recently, and it's really sad news. But then again, like as people who work in the industry, we do understand like their sentiments and like why they do what they do. And as you guys brought up, very important points that now we need people who have like transferable skills and who can work across different, say, stations within the company. So for Derek, I want to ask you specifically about this. Like, how is it adapting from Web 2 to Web 3? Was it difficult for iXwap, or like did you experience challenges?
Yeah, maybe I can share a bit about my own personal experience moving from where I previously was. I started off my career in legal practice at multinational law firms. So a couple of them, I was there for about 6 years. And then in my latter years of my time at the law firm that I was previously at before I moved into this role, I was sort of doing all the fintech work in my department, mostly because I was personally investing outside of work. So the partners would usually come, these senior partners would come and, they would come to me with all the files, and they would not know how to use the apps, and I'll have to teach them how to download it and how to use it in order to trade. These were started off with stocks basically previously, and then eventually I got sucked into crypto just because of a conversation I had with a neighbor all those years ago. So from there I started to do crypto work at work as well. So this is at the law firm, right? Advising regulators, advising exchanges, pitting both sides against each other. No, I'm just kidding. And then I was dealing with crypto asset recoveries in frauds and insolvencies as well. So that was before I jumped into the space full time. I would say almost 3 years ago, as I mentioned at the start. That was around the time of COVID, where all these remote working opportunities came up. Right? And so far, it's been super rewarding for me because I get to spend now all of my time, right, both professional and personal, in the space itself. How I learned about the space, well, as you guys would know, back in the day, we didn't have blockchain courses or degrees. It was all DIY. So it's like picking up knowledge from different randos on crypto Twitter, right? So you scroll through your feed and you think, yes, this KOL with a frog meme profile pic looks 100% legit, so I'll follow him. So yeah, this was, I suppose, about 1.5 cycles ago, and that's where it all kicked off for me.
But Derek, I have a question. Like, aren't you afraid? Like, initially, there isn't really a book about crypto and blockchain law, and like anything goes wrong, you go to jail. Like, look at what happened to the guy in FTX.
Well, very good question, YC. I mean, I would say this. Actually, I come from a litigation background where we argue. There's a lot of interpretations that one can take whenever you argue a case, right? I used to see every litigation as a chess match. So jumping to this space now where I'm a lot more involved in regulatory structuring side, and on the structuring side of things as well, I find it super interesting because for me, I see it as a blank canvas, right? Yeah, nowadays we have a lot more laws and regulations in place governing crypto, but it's still being developed. And the fact of the matter is, in this space, new assets and new activities are being created every single day, right? The laws cannot keep up. They will never be able to keep up. They take years and years to come up, to be able to be implemented and to be debated before they actually get enacted into law. So for me personally, yes, I enjoy operating within those gray areas, and also obviously operating within whatever frameworks that's already there, but also coming up with obviously your positions internally as a company, why you take this position, why you've taken this strategy, so that if the regulators do come asking, you say, look, this is the entire analysis, our entire legal framework as to why we're not breaking any laws, which is why every company needs to have good legal counsel.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on the legal counsel side, because I've spoken to a few of my clients, right? I think the demand of getting the right person, right? Say for example, in Derek's position, right, to be able to guide the company through the waters, to make sure that you're not just being compliant, right? Because these days when you want to launch a product, right, your legal guy has to have certain level of understanding on, okay, what do we need to follow, right, in terms of the product before they can be done. It's not like now we are in a space that, I want to do an MVP and we can just launch it and start marketing it. It doesn't really work exactly that way, right? Even through the product development, I see a lot of companies treading very carefully, right, making sure that they have, I would say, the suited person to guide them onto what is to be said, what is to be not said, right, before they want to say, for example, do a product launch. So I think I agree to what Derek is saying, that these days a lot of compliance team, right, they are being carefully educated to know, okay, what can you do to best help, because the market moves so fast, right? It's like today you might have one thing, tomorrow you might have another. When I first went into the space back in 2017, there are companies trying to do RWA as well, but at the time they are not equipped with either the knowledge of what should be done, how can they protect their clients and themselves, or if not, they don't have the technical capability to do it. But these days, look at how many companies with the exact knowledge and the right tool to try to put a proper product development. And of course, I see legal and compliance as a very important role. It's not just about sometimes people that I know doing compliance used to be from bigger places like finance and whatnot. People used to think that they're just compliance, but as a matter of fact, it's not just that. They need to know more than compliance. They need to know the product. They need to know the market. They need to know what is moving around, so that they can protect the company as well as the client who are actually working with them. That is what I think is moving in the market right now.
Yeah, but then it's so expensive to own Derek, and someone he has a team of five. So people these projects who are startups, what can they do? Talking about security token and then RWA, right? But then we will think in the decentralization world sounds feasible. Technically is feasible, but in terms of legally not feasible. So Derek, have you ever think of setting up a free legal association?
So that's a good point. Actually now what we are seeing in the market is we're seeing a lot of these fractional fractional general counsel services being provided. I think Don knows all about this, right? So these are basically companies that when they call themselves and market themselves as fractional general counsels, what they are doing is basically similar to law firms, right? you can have a law firm can service many clients. So similarly, instead of having one full-time in-house legal counsel, what you do is you go to these companies, you engage them on a contract basis, basically, and they provide you with advice on a retainer basis or as and when is needed, and they bill you for just that portion of fees. So it's not, it suits, I suppose, newer companies or startups which don't require or can't afford getting someone on full time. But yeah, there are a few of these out there now.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of fractional, introduction these days. Not just on a legal perspective. You have fractional HR, right? People trying to fractionize my role, right? We also have like fractional marketing, BD. But it's all good because sometimes I agree to what Derek is saying. When you are at a stage, especially say for example seed funding, right? You don't have that much money to hire someone full time. Perhaps that money, right, based on the situation, has to be put somewhere else. So I do see companies engaging, talents on a fractional basis, or they do it like on a contract basis, right? Say for example, we can sign you on for 3 months. Yeah, then they will say what is the deliverable for that 3 months before deciding should we employ that seed candidate or professional on a permanent or longer basis. I think that's very common these days.
Or there's another alternative is to use ChatGPT.
Again, there's actually a lot of companies providing similar software capabilities. Like, for example, talking about areas like payroll or invoicing, I'm sure there are a lot of Web3 startups that is trying to solve these problems as well. I think there's a few that I have known already out there in the market, and they already have existing clients that they are actually servicing.
So yeah, to add to that, actually, our company is super big on using AI tools across all business functions. I personally have been using ChatGPT for almost 3 years now since it first came out. And for my legal team as well, I do always tell them to use ChatGPT as the first port of call because it saves a lot of time. But that being said, there's a lot of inaccuracies from ChatGPT, so you can't rely on it 100%. But yeah, it's always a good starting point, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. It's just need to ask the right question to ChatGPT. Then I think it will help to concise. But these days, I think they are also remodeling ChatGPT as well. They're getting feedback even from us as a user on how can they improve as a product or software that is so many people is using these days.
Speaking of which, Don, I just want to ask you, what's the difference between hiring in Web 2 and in Web 3? You also mentioned that these tools matter, like ChatGPT and stuff. But what's the main difference between Web 2 and Web 3 hiring?
I think that's a good question, but if you were to ask me, I think the key difference right these days is that employers, based on my understanding and my experience, they no longer just look at your CV. They don't just look at, okay, which school did you graduate from, right? Do you come from a very stellar company? We're looking at things outside of your CV, right? They'll look at things that what is intangible. Say for example, when we were actually working on a case recently, right? It was actually for a really good layer 2 project. So they were actually looking to hire someone with a very specific skill set. Like for example, have you actually built up an ecosystem before? When we say building an ecosystem, building an L2 ecosystem and building a not L2 ecosystem, I think that's a very big difference. Because of the understanding in terms of technicality that's required to build the ecosystem. It's not just about doing the community or marketing. We're looking at things like, have you actually have the technical knowledge to connect with the developers? So when we look at roles within the Web3 space, in comparison, based on my understanding, you have to look at what these people has. Like for example, what do you do outside of work? Do you work on a side project, or have you actually tried being business owner before? Or what do you do out of whatever that you are already doing to connect within the space? Now, I'm not saying that candidates that has not done that means they are not suitable or they're not good, but the fact is people are mostly all coming into Web3 space. So how do you differentiate? You need a differentiator, right? Because I can say that I'm passionate, but what do I do to show that I'm passionate? Oh, I just do my job well. Yeah, you're a good person. You do BD, you can close a lot of deals. But apart from that, which you are paid to do, and obviously you must be good at, what do you do? And of course, recruiters like myself, We have to be savvy with things like Discord, right? Telegram, Reddit. Back in the day, all I need to do is know people, right? Now that's not enough because they move so fast. Like we have candidates that come through from Telegram, from LinkedIn, from Discord, and I have to learn for the very technical roles, how do you use GitHub or Stack Overflow to find the right person. So I think that's the key difference, right? That I see right now, that so many people within the resume space are so young, but they have the courage to take the first step to do something that I think people don't want to do or don't dare to do, in my opinion. So these are the kind of things that I will look out for when I speak to a candidate. I mean, at least that is what I see that help. Those candidates that has these qualities, usually they get the role, at least from my experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, because I think the audience would really appreciate how you've given us some tips on how to further our employment in the Web3 space, especially since many people are just used to the normal Web2 hiring processes. So when you're actually in the Web3 space already, I want to ask YC, what are the pros and cons of working in Web3?
I think everyone wants to come into Web3. All the youngsters, they want to come into Web3 because they think that it's very good to work at home. Honestly, I have seen people, they just on the YouTube at 9 a.m. After that, they go back to sleep. They wake up at about 1 to 2 p.m. Then they really start working. So I think in Web3, we must take it that we don't really have a working time. Yeah, it's all around the clock. And we must accept the fact that people work very differently these days. So but one good thing about Web3 is that you get to work from home most of the times lah. So, and then the next is, I think crypto in the blockchain industry pays higher, at least in the past. So I was in sports marketing, and I rejected this guy who called me 7 times. And then I say, no, because I always think that crypto is a scam. But I haven't got a job for 2 months. So back then in COVID. So he kept calling me, and then I said, how much you going to pay? So after he told me the amount, I said, okay, tell me where are you? I'll come down. Yeah, so they pay higher. The bad thing, another good thing is that I think in crypto, you get to travel around the world, and you get to really know people from all over the world. I never know where is Malta until the company just sent me to Malta. I was really afraid, but then I was like, wow, so pretty.
Yeah, beautiful country.
Yeah, I even have friends in Africa now. Yes, and really, so I think one con, I think a few con is crypto never sleep. So this industry never sleep. Sometimes I have to wake up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. to suit the US timing for meetings or for interviews. And then the other thing is that I think just like what the topic is today, we are barely protected from the local labor law, and we don't have a blockchain court or a blockchain law. So I think this is very worrisome. Maybe later I will also share some stories about these experiences. And I think one pros and cons is that we receive our salary in USDT. So they never really pay our taxes, our medical insurance, and I still need to pay the difference when I do a conversion. So, but then it's a take it or leave it. I cannot in the Web2 company I can tell my boss, MOM say cannot. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe Derek can tell us, is it legal to receive salary in USDT or in other crypto?
Sure. I knew this question was coming, which is a question I actually coincidentally just got this question. A friend from one of the local crypto exchanges actually asked me this exact same question. I'm going to give you a very lawyer answer and say it depends. And it depends on which country you're in, right? Depends on whether your country recognizes crypto as property or whether they still think it's magical internet money. So, for example, we see that previously, Russia, China, India, these were the countries that had stronger stances, right? They had stricter bans against crypto, but we're seeing them change their tune right now. They're sort of FOMOing into the party. Another example is the UAE. They actually came out with a new law recently that only allows payments in AED-backed stablecoins. So that's coming into effect next year. It's not in effect now. So that will be a change. But I would say generally, for the majority of other countries around the world, it is typically allowed, and it doesn't matter that your country doesn't recognize it as legal tender, because that's most countries. Contract law as a whole, right, typically allows both parties, the company and the staff, right, the employee or the contractor. They allow them to agree on the type of remuneration that's being decided as consideration, right? Be it in stables, Bitcoin, or Wundeng. I'm joking. Don't take your salary in memes. But yeah.
But so, have you heard of any company that got into trouble by paying their employees with USDT or not?
No, in general, no. I've not heard of any problems or any issues.
Okay, then that's good news.
How about
Okay,
Derek?
so
How about Don? Have you heard?
I don't think which mode of payment you are receiving is an issue, right? Going back to the first point that I think it's still like I always tell my candidate to always do your homework before you sign any contract, whether you are based in Singapore, you are in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, or whichever places you are at, right? Make sure you know what you need to pay for. Like for example, if you are there, does the company has an entity? If the company doesn't have an entity, how can you work your way around to pay what needs to be paid? Because say for example, right, I'm a Singaporean. So if I were to work somewhere else, right, then I will have to check, okay, say for example, if I'm gonna be based in Hong Kong, do I have to pay tax like because I'm working there? Then at the same time, I still have to pay tax for Singapore, right? Because I'm a Singapore citizen. So I always tell my candidates, just make sure that you understand what you need to, okay, what are you liable for, so that you know how much you need to be compensated, and what is the clause that can protect you the most. If you were to ask me, I think that a lot of my candidates these days, they don't just take full stables. Usually you'll take like say it best 70 to 80% fiat and the rest in stables, or say tokens in that say project, whatever the project token that the company gives. So all in all, in summary, I think you just need to be very clear of what you need to do, right? Because you need to protect yourself. I always tell my candidate, you need to protect yourself. Anything you're not sure, seek proper legal consultation, right? Of course, Google is a good tool. ChatGPT is also a good tool. But I always believe my friends in legal, right? They are the professional, right? Yeah, they are professional because they're paid for what they're good at. So I will just ask them, right? But of course, be mindful, right? Say for example, if I'm gonna ask Derek, right, I'm not gonna send him like one chunk of questions and say, can you help me with this, right? Probably, I think it would be nice to, just, can I buy you a drink? I just want to ask you one or two questions. But of course, if it's more, maybe Derek will say, okay, the time starts now. I'm gonna start charging for your legal advisors.
You to hire him on a fraction.
Fractional. Then bring out the contract. This is a fractional contract. Can I get you to help? So yeah, but it is the fact. I always encourage all my candidates to do your homework and make sure you get the resources from the right professional. Don't get yourself into trouble, and then after that you think, oh, I should have asked. So yeah, that's what I think. This is very common for people to get stables these days.
So Don, you mentioned this, that you have to know your obligations, like what you have to pay.
Yeah.
So there's this common crypto practice, like in the Web3 space, we receive our salaries in crypto and without the traditional benefits like pensions, insurance, and medicals, which are sometimes automatically deducted from our salaries in the traditional working space. So
Yes.
I want to ask the three of you, like, are Web3 companies obligated to provide these benefits?
I'm not a founder of a Web3 company, so I can't say anything. But what I see is never an obligation per se. But you have to know your rights. If you want something, I think it'd be nice to properly discuss and negotiate. And if that's not on the table, I will usually ask my candidate, then try to get a better compensation, so you know that you're compensated based on monetary. You won't feel so bad, right? If not, you'll be thinking, I don't have that insurance. I don't have that gym benefit. It's all down to individual, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe I can offer a legal perspective. I think, generally speaking, again, depending on which country you're from. I think generally employment laws don't actually require these sort of benefits to be provided unless you are a certain type of worker, right? Laborers, for example, or unless you are below a certain income threshold, which I think most Web3 workers wouldn't fall under. I hope. I've seen it done both ways, right? I've seen companies in Web3 giving some of these benefits and those that don't. I think smaller startups, smaller projects typically fall under the latter, where they're like, I'm too busy, right? We don't have enough people to take care of this. I pay you enough, you just go and take care of it yourself. So yeah, I mean that's my observation.
How about YC?
Well, as a CEO, of course, I hope to save all costs. Can no provide, no lah. I think we should provide, but sometimes because, like, for example, like our company is registered in Singapore, and then we don't know how to provide for Eunice because she's in Philippines. Yeah. Like for those in Singapore, right, we know like, okay, just go here and buy insurance and then contribute the CPF for them. And then, that's all. But like in other countries, we don't know. And for example, like in Malaysia, we are not even allowed to because we are not even legally allowed to open an entity there. Then, so let's not even discuss about contributing to their, they call it EPF.
Yes.
Yeah, and we are not even allowed to buy insurance for them because we don't have an entity there. So I think as a company, we are obligated to provide, but I really don't know how.
Since you guys mentioned it, I just want to know, like, what are your first-hand experiences in the Web3 space since you started working in Web3, transitioning from traditional setting to the Web3 space? Let's start with Don, maybe.
Okay. I think the difference of us, there was a period of time that I was actually working with Web3 space per se. I was actually involved in two setup. One is actually a crypto exchange based out of Thailand, right? That goes by the name ZipMax. That was before they were like really big. It was actually more of like something on an ad hoc basis. I wanted to learn, get myself on the ground after being a recruiter, right? I was placing a lot of BD, a lot of like institutional sales guys, but I had not actually done the work myself. So I was like, okay, I want to try, like, is there a difference? How do I find my way around it? And boy, I had a hard time because although I do know the right person, again, which is why at the start of our video, right, I was mentioning that what we need is proper understanding, because people will let you have a chance to speak with them because they know you, but that doesn't mean that they're gonna give you the business, right? At the end of the day, it's boiling down to how much do you know. Because how much you know, in my perspective, also represents how serious you are in wanting to be in the business. Because everyone can say that I want a piece of the Web3 space, I want to succeed, but how much work do you put in to make sure that you succeed, right? How much work do you put in to at least do a better job at what you're supposed to do? So at that time, we were actually doing BD for them, which talk to projects to release on the exchange, and was small, right? Not like the bigger boys, like nothing like the Binance, OKX, or any other tier 1 exchanges. So how do you navigate, right, to let people know that you are providing something that's of value? And the difference is that in a Web3 space, when you're going to a role, doesn't matter whether you're BD, you're marketing, or you're a developer, or even say, for example, like Derek, a professional in legal, right? It's all about results, in my opinion. In the Web2 space, because you go to office, right, you speak with your teammates and whatnot, so there's a little bit of that factor. But within the Web3 space, I think a lot of it is results, right? There's not so much of micromanaging as I recall, at least in my experience. There's not a lot of micromanaging, but there's a lot of like, okay, I trust you to do your work, but you do have to take the initiative to come back to whoever they're reporting to if you need help. A lot of it is on results. Then how do you navigate to make sure that results will be given based on the timing that is set up for you? I think that is the key thing that I see within the Web2 and Web3 space, because there's a lot of things to pick up. Market changes so fast. There might be a different narrative that you're gonna work on next week, right? Today, John, we want you to push listings. Next week, we want you to get funding or partnerships done. So that is the thing that's very common that I see within Web3 space. we are all expected to be able to ramp up as the market move, right? And you need to be a very adaptable. I think that is at least what I face and I've seen through myself. Yeah.
What about Derek?
Yeah, personally, I think what I've seen, things like, especially for a team which is distributed across various time zones, right? Time zone differences, like you mentioned, YC, you have to take calls in the US sometimes, similar to us because we have a license in the Bahamas, which is like 13 hours behind now. So the timing is always weird, dealing with them, talking to regulators or talking to our staff over there as well. The nature of Web3 is just that it's borderless, right? So we have lots of partners, clients, investors, stakeholders from everywhere really, and sometimes you have to match different time zones on a call, which is difficult. Another example is, my founders are basically the most hardworking people you can see. Sometimes they travel a lot. They go to different time zones, Miami, California, Europe, and they will still attend every single call, even though it's mostly based on this SGT, right? They'll still wake up at weird times and take those calls. But along with, like you say, YC, the benefits of traveling while working, it also comes with responsibility. I think something that Don also mentioned, right? We're all self-starters. We all have to be responsible. Other of the obvious challenges would be language barriers. So there are, lots of developers out there that are superb, right? But the problem is a lot of times their first language is not English. But I would say that's where good product managers come in. They sort of form the layer or the translation layer in between, the business side and the legal side, the sales team with the tech team itself. So those issues, I would say, are not deal breakers. They can still be overcome. And then another challenge, not my own personal experience, but I suppose we all heard about all the North Korean imposters that have recently been reported, right, in the news. So for those who haven't heard, for the listeners out there, I think there was about 4,000 North Korean imposters that are reportedly infiltrating Web3 job markets, right, by submitting fake applications. So they're trying to gain access to malicious, to company data and whatnot for malicious purposes, hacking, data theft, things like that. So I suppose for employers out there, next time a job applicant, doesn't want to turn their camera on during an interview, maybe don't assume it's because they're not good looking. Might be because they look like Kim Jong-un instead. But yeah, I mean, those are just some examples at the top of my mind, I suppose.
Yeah, to add on to what Derek is saying, I have first experience with those guys. They tried to, we were actually speaking to one candidate about, I think it was actually 2-3 years ago, just before COVID is over. We have like a couple of those developers, right? They claim to be Chinese. And what they do is very smart. They will do homework on, say, for example, Singapore. Which are the proper university that you're supposed to be in if you are in Singapore. And you just got to look out for their resume, right? Usually some of them they will put like, oh, I'm studying in NUS and the first job is in France. Then I'll ask him like, oh, that's nice. You went to France, like Paris, or like, then some of them they can reply, but the reply would be probably not as smooth because again, English is not their first language. Right? Then in the interview, they will ask a lot of questions, not about the role, but a lot about the company. Oh, what are you guys gonna do? What's the new product? How big is the team? What is your funding? How do you get them? So we have first experience, not exactly good, but I think we also learn to try to identify, to get them on camera. Some of them they'll do on their camera, but they are always not looking at you because they are looking at ChatGPT. Okay, how do I reply this guy? Oh, really? Some of them I heard from my friends who had they're also founders. They interviewed, I think, one of the developer. Then they did a pair programming with that guy. So halfway through, right, the guy went out of the interview. He claimed that there's a crash on his laptop and whatnot, but actually it's because he couldn't continue the act because it's not a developer himself. So yeah, that's one thing that as a recruiter we face as well. How do we make sure that the candidate we send to our client are the right ones, right? Because more often than not, if it's not, it's gonna put a dent in our reputation as well. So we try to get them on a camera. We try to face meetings if possible with candidates, that we are helping our client to hire overseas as well. Another thing that I want to point out is I think burning out in Web3, because there's no limit, right? There's no time zone limit per se. We are all borderless. But that comes with the fact that I have to be present when my other team are present. I think being very mindful about burning out is something that is very important, right? It's a challenge that I think all of us will face. Even myself right now, because we have guys that's not based in Singapore helping us to push the recruitment efforts for our client. Then I also tell my guys, just make sure that you do what you need to do and take the rest that you need to take, because work can never be done. But just need to try to manage that, because if you get burnt out first, then what happens to our client? So that's, I think, what I just want to add on, right? After Derek point out like the two very good points in my opinion. Yeah.
Wow, I really miss those old time, knock off work. You cannot find me anymore. There's no mobile phone. Yeah, so maybe I also want to share a few experiences which can be very juicy. So like I think very challenging in crypto is maybe challenging and not challenging for Singaporeans, because there are actually a lot of Chinese companies, and then they will just think that they register in Singapore or offshore or in Hong Kong, and then they suddenly become global. So they always ask you, can you speak Mandarin? And they always ask you, can you speak English? Of course, they can't test your English. They just, as long as you can speak, hi, how are you? Then they think, okay, you understand English. Then the next thing is their culture is very different from us. And another thing is, wow, they pay salary on the 15th one. So it's like, so 15 is very difficult, because me having to work for 20 over years, I can still sort of look out for some signals when the company goes wrong. But then, when you pay on the 15, it's very dangerous for employees. So like, I used to work for this Chinese company. This founder, he got into trouble legally, and then we couldn't find him for 1 week. Initially, we were still partying, like, wow, boss not around. After 7 days, right, salary nearing, we are a bit worried, where is he? So then we realized that he has been detained, and it will take him a long time to come out. There is no contingency plan, and then the CEO was like, don't know what to do, and then all of us have no salaries. Luckily, we have some cash stashed somewhere, so I brought it out, and then we pay everybody at least 1 month. But this is not fair, because according to the employment contract, we were supposed to have year-end bonus, the 13-month bonus, and then if the contract were to be terminated, we have to be compensated for 2 months, and plus the leave that we haven't been taken. So I think it's really, really and there's nowhere we can go to. You go to the local labor court, because they tell you that this company is not registered in Singapore. And then the next one happens recently. It happens to one of my friends. Just yesterday I was talking to him, and I told him, let me tell your story on this show, and let's shame the exchange. Okay, no, so there's this exchange. A lot of exchanges now are enjoying life in Malaysia, because they think that the gray area is very gray there now. Again, Chinese company, and then so after 40 days, my friend decides to quit, because he thinks that your platform is not ready and our goals are not aligned, and you are not as rich as you had claimed. No budget, nothing. And so the boss decides not to pay the whole team for 40 days, no salary. And the boss even claimed that they are scammers, but he was the one who hired them. So, and then again, even though there was an employment contract signed, but nothing can be done. So maybe Derek and Don can share with us, like in such cases, what can we do besides going Twitter, writing long stories, or like writing to 13 days?
Derek, maybe you go first.
Sure. So Yeah, I mean, I'll share. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with this space because, as I said, in my past life, I was a litigator. So, I mean, I dealt with lots of disputes, including a lot of labor law and employment disputes as well. So, I think, okay, at this point, I think it's going to be useful for me to explain a little bit about the different types of legal arrangements that can be, that you can have between a company and a staff, right? There's something called an employment relationship versus something called a self-employment relationship, right? So an employee is signs an employment contract, whereas a contractor would sign an independent contractor contract or agreement.
Yeah.
The distinction at law is this: basically, an employment relationship imposes more obligations on the company. For example, registering locally, local taxation, your 401k or CPF equivalent contributions as well. Whereas as an independent contractor or sole contractor is also another term they use, there are a lot less requirements, but that also means there are a lot less protections. As an employee, you have a lot more labor law protections that you qualify for. Whereas as an independent contractor, your only recourse is to rely on the letter of whatever stated in the contract, basically what the black and white that's stated there. So it's very important, if we're talking now about staff, to always make sure, all your rights and obligations are covered under that. And the added, I suppose, complication, which YC was alluding to earlier, is that in the Web3 space, a lot of companies are contracting from offshore entities, right? So you see, in a typical lawsuit, right, in a court or a labor tribunal, what happens is, if let's say you are the staff, you want to sue your company, you need to engage lawyers. You need to get them to draft the contracts, draft the court documents, file that in. The process also will involve, you submitting all your documents, all your contracts with the company, any evidence you have, WhatsApp chats, whatever communications that may be relevant to the case. Then there'll be a hearing, right, where both parties come and argue the case. So at the end of the day, even if you get a judgment in your favor or at court you win, right, you get a paper, it's only going to be a paper because the other side, right, the company may choose not to or may refuse to comply with that. So what do you have to do at that point? Unfortunately, you have to incur more legal costs, incur more time to spend to enforce that judgment, right? Because you typically, if it's money that they owe you, you need to enforce against their assets, right? Get discovery orders against their bank accounts or find out what assets they have, and then you need to be able to go to court, ask them to, for example, if it's an asset, sell it and then get back the money. Another problem is if your employer is overseas, then you need to go overseas to do it, or you may not even know where this company may have their assets. So it is very, very difficult. And mind you, lawsuits take years to resolve, and there may still be levels of appeal. So it takes a long, long time. And frankly speaking, a lot of times it's not worth it to do that. I would say, take precautions at the very start. Because if you go through a lawsuit, we are now Web3. By the time you're done with the lawsuit, we would probably be in Web4 already, right? I think, it's important for staff, when you're looking at any job, to make sure everything is detailed in the contract, understand what kind of employment relationship or you're entering into, and really, I'm not going to mince this. There are risks, in Web3. So especially with offshore companies, so you just have to be mindful of all of this and weigh it all.
So, Don, will future employers judge me if I start shaming my ex-employers on LinkedIn? Like, okay, since I
just to cover a bit more of what Derek shared also, right? I think understanding your employment contract is important because indeed, like what Derek shared, whether you are on a contract of service or contract for a service, there's a very big difference, even in Singapore. So I always tell my candidate, do your own research, right? Understand the founder, make sure that you read the contract properly. Is there any hidden clause? Like I used to hear from one of my friends, right, that he was actually going through an interview with a very big Web3 company who shall not be named. They added one very interesting clause in the contract, is that should he leave, he's not allowed to join any Web3 company. By right, when you want to set out a statement like that, right, usually there's a time frame and it shouldn't be too long. So they added a time frame, and to best it, right, they added the specific competitor's name. Can you imagine, like, he lists out like 15, right? Then how is this guy gonna like find a new job if he want to leave, right? It's bad enough to say that he cannot join Web3. Because if you say cannot join Web3 or whatever, he can try to find something that's related, right? Maybe for the time being, and then he can go back again. But that companies point out, you cannot join company A, company B, company C. So the moment I hear this from my friend, right, I'm like, dude, that's a red flag, man. Because it doesn't matter how long you can't join these companies, but in the first place, if they are in a role that, say for example, you are doing institutional sales, then how are you going to bring your resource to another company that is not using this institutional sales resource that you have? You will be able to find a job that probably pay you equally well or better, because what you are bringing onto the table may not be what you have, and you can't use it because of whatever clause that the company has. So understanding the clause, I think, is very important, right? Making sure that the company, okay, if in the case, based on my understanding, if the company doesn't have a legal entity, right, you make sure you know that which company or which third party are they using. Like the companies, I think there's something like DU, they provide EOR, right, employee on record. They help to, facilitate such stuff. So these companies, right, they will take a portion from the company first, sort of like a deposit, so they can pay you, right? So these are some of the things that I will tell my candidates to look out for, because even as a recruiter, right, this is what we will ask the client also. When we want to place a role, we will ask, okay, what are the terms? How long is the probation? When will they get the pay? So that even as a recruiter, I represent my client correctly, and I make sure that my candidate also understand what he or she has signed up for. That's why I would say, just a little bit of what Derek covered. I think it's very important to know what you're reading and what you're signing, right? But coming back to what you asked, right, YC. Okay, that's just to make sure, right? These days, I always tell my candidates to be as transparent as you can be. You don't necessarily need to add on any other thing, right? But you can just tell them honestly, because there was actually also a case whereby a candidate did not tell the interviewer the full reason why he or she left, right? But the client actually has a relationship with that person's ex-employer, and I think it's very common, right, for us to all do our due diligence to check, hey, how's this guy or how's this girl, are they good and whatnot, right? So when you don't tell the full picture, right, or you try to cook out something different, it puts you in the bad light. And no matter what you say, right, I think it will be hard to salvage whatever that has already been done. So I always tell my candidates to be transparent as it can be, right? Just share with them what's the genuine reason why you left, what was the situation, so that when they cross-reference on their own, you'll be like, okay, this is what, let's say for example, YC shared, and this guy said this, it seems to be quite aligned. Then you can have a chat with the potential employer, future employer, and say that, I've told you everything. Do you think that there's a chance that we can work together? In my opinion, it beats than hiding or not saying. Because some candidates will tell me, Don, but I don't want to backmouth my ex-employer, or I don't want to put myself in a situation like, I'm backmouthing someone. Not wrong, but if you don't say it, someone's going to say it for you. Then, if in my opinion, I'd rather let you be the one telling them whatever that is, already happened or had happened, than them hearing from someone else. That's my take.
I think we should build a blockchain glass door.
Well, if we are gonna build a blockchain glass door, I'm pretty sure I already know a few names that will be up there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you need to ask the next question.
Can I ask first something that I want to ask Derek about? Since blockchain revolves around accountability and stuff like that, they always tell us that we can trace everything through blockchain, but then there are still employers, there are still startup companies that don't have a face. Like even Bitcoin founder Satoshi Nakamoto, we still don't know that person until now. But if you only know your employer's country, very few details about your employers, are you still gonna be able to raise the concern in a country where the jurisdiction, the law applies to them? Are you still gonna be able to raise a complaint for them, or it's not possible?
So typically what you need, if you're ever going to file a lawsuit, right, technically speaking, you need to know the name of the entity, and you need to have it would be good if you know their physical address, or if you know of their contact details. That also helps. There are a lot of cases where actually courts have been quite progressive, and they've allowed for example, this is because of when you sue somebody, you need to file and serve your papers. You need to deliver your papers to the person you're suing, right? So traditionally, this was all done by way of hand or mail, but now they're allowing things. They're allowing a lot of different types of different methods, right? Email, dropping into their Twitter handles, whatever. All that works nowadays. But that is, I would say, what you're able to do in theory. But as I was mentioning earlier, the second thing is in practical terms, right? Whether that helps you or not is a different thing. So at the outset, you always need to know, a little bit of information about, who the team is. I think where they're based, because if you only know if they set up, for example, just a facade, right? A facade office in Malaysia, for example, YC was saying, and nobody actually sits in the office. I know of specific cases, examples. I've actually handled cases like that. They say they have an office there, but there's actually nobody there. We go there, there's nobody there. The problem is, even if you get your day in court, you get your judgment at the end of the day, you can't do anything with it. As if you're a staff, you're looking to enter into a new job, you do need to know a little bit about the company. If not, like I say, if you're being hired by a DAO, for example, right, you're taking on that little bit of risk, which you have to be prepared to take on.
What happens, right, if let's say someone gets like a virtual desk, virtual office? There's a lot of these co-working space these days, right? We are all remote, right? So they encourage, okay, you probably getting a virtual desk, say in CBD, would be better than putting an address very Chinese, then your client wouldn't know where that place is, right? So what happens if like the guy decided to, okay, let's get a virtual office, which is not wrong, right? It's very common these days. Then how would you advise, or what do you think could be done more in that sense?
We're looking from the employee's perspective now,
Yeah.
The thing is, okay, so if you're a bit more resourceful, what I would recommend you doing is, find out where the country is, find out where that company is based, go to that country, look for their company's register, which if it's public, what you can do is pay a small fee, extract the company details, and then from there you can actually find out who the directors are, where their registered addresses are, who their company secretary, who their shareholders are, and from there at least you have a little bit more information or comfort in your hands.
So maybe Dawn, you can share with us what are the red flags that we should identify, like get ready lah.
I think in my situation, I think I'm very neutral, right? I think red flags applies for both employee as well as employers, right? So typically, again, like how the contract is drafted, I think can be a very good indicator on whether this company is legit or not, right? Sometimes my candidate asked me, I feel that the contract is not detailed enough, or I feel that the contract seems like very brief, it's just basic stuff, right? I always ask the candidate, then just make sure to check in, is this like a letter of offer? Because there's a difference, right? Letter of offer and employment contract is very different. Some candidates, they think that signing a letter of offer is good enough. Actually, letter of offer, right, it's just like your, when you apply for EP, that's the in principle approval kind of thing, right? Just say that, okay, we want you can report in to say, for example, date or whatever date that you set on. But the employment contract then is the real deal. So I always ask my candidate, okay, after you get a letter offer, make sure you ask the employer, right, politely, can I have a look at the employment contract? Because I want to know, right, what are the main things that the company will be, very concerned on. So your contract well. That's one thing. I think that's usually my first indicator. Second thing is, depending on how many rounds of interview the company has. Okay, this may not apply to a very seed startup, like very early stage startup, because maybe the founders is like 3, right? Then how do you know, right? So I will always ask, apart from doing Zoom meeting or Zoom interview, ask for a face-to-face one, because I believe that because of technology advancement, a lot of us, we are used to doing things online. But maybe because I'm a recruiter and I speak to people all the time, I believe that when I meet someone face to face, right, I can kind of feel an energy from that person, whether is this person like appear to be who he is during our past like interaction over the call. But this is more like a personal approach, right? Meeting the person, speaking to more people in the company. I think that's helped to let you understand a bit more, right? Doing your own research, right? Before you join the company, find out about the founders, what they have done before, any, I don't know, existing lawsuit or case. Although I think it's very rare, but it doesn't hurt to be more careful because you want to make sure that again you are protected yourself. So vice versa, right? Employers these days they are also very careful with the candidates that they are hiring as well. Right, also because of there's a lot of like fractional, new fractional way of working, contract working. I see more and more of my clients that they do like a 3-month contract first. So that 3-month contract is kind of like a probation, right? If let's say you don't make the cut, whether it's on your end or on the employer end, right, they can just end the relationship there. But if it's okay, then you will do a permanent contract. There's no more probation. So it's like, okay, you're in with us for that 1 or 2 years, for example. So this is what I think people can look out for. Employers will ask people for their opinion on candidates, like, oh, have this candidate worked in this company? What have they done before? So because in the past, my opinion is that reference check, sometimes I don't think it's really relevant. In my opinion, because when I want to give a reference check, I think we all will agree that we won't give someone a name that the guy hates me, right? Then that guy will make sure I won't get the job. I will at least give a reference or someone that I think I'm reporting to or I have a better relationship with. And at least that's what I see in the past when we're doing reference check. But these days, I think we are all like smarter. We'll ask, like, try to go to the community. We'll ask people around the space to know whether has this guy done something before, good or bad. So that's what I think people will look out for in that sense. Yeah.
What about Derek?
Yeah,
What are the red flags that we should look out for? And are there any other alternatives? Because we won't have money for a civil suit. Forget it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, it's a completely waste of time if you ask me, to actually engage in a lawsuit. But red flags, I would say, just to add on to what Juan has said, I think when there's no information on the team, right, when they're all anonymous, including their founders, that's a red flag, right? If the only picture you see of them is a dog or cat with a hat or laser eyes, then maybe don't quit your job just yet, right?
Yeah.
If a company has no track record or social media presence, that's pretty weird also, I suppose, in the Web3 space. Fine, if it's a new company, then maybe go back to the founders, right? A very, very practical way of doing your research is, just going on Google, going on Discord X, right? Looking up these people, seeing what they did in their past careers and past lives to see whether they are legit. Another one I would say is unknown investor backing. Yeah, I mean, this is not really a deal breaker, but I mean, I see a lot of more prominent or more legit projects. They are front and center, telling everyone who their investors are, so that always helps. Something I've heard happening a lot is also receiving emails from imposters, right? Basically, people who say they are from this and this company or so and so, and they're not actually those people. So check your email domains to see, whether these are actually the correct people. What you can do is also go on other forms of social media, LinkedIn, to reach out to them to see whether they are indeed the people that has contacted you. Those kinds of things, I would say.
Yeah, I think for me, basically after going through, right, I think there are some red flags that we need to spot is when your senior management starts to have secret meetings very often. And when your founder is not, when your CEO or founder is not appearing in the weekly meetings where they are always there.
Sounds like personal experiences.
Yeah, and it's really important that you know who is the owner, the founder, and the CEO, even the co-founders. It's really important. Someone who's not able to reveal who are they must have done something wrong in the past life, or they are going to do something sneaky this life. So it's really important that they are willing to share who are the people behind. Maybe not the behind, but who are the people like running it and paying for it. And always keep a good relationship with your HR and finance. They will hint you.
Well said.
Yeah. I think you need to When you hear people coughing more and more often around you, I think that's a good sign.
There's also one more red flag is you see hiring suddenly stop. Then where they have been hiring very regularly and then suddenly they stop. Or even like midway they are already hiring but they stop it. These are all red flags. Or they are starting to hold back budgets. Like what is planned for, then they suddenly say, no, not going to pay for this, not going to pay for that, and they start cutting a lot of back-end software. I think these are red flags that we should look out for. And I think one thing that we need all employers to know is that crypto is a very fast-paced industry. Don't be so shocked why people change job like every 1 year lah. Like every some hirers, right, when they interview me they were like, why were you with that company for 1 year? Hey, no, I want to, the company collapse lah. Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, so
Not wrong.
Eunice, you want to do your summary already?
At least I know I'm safe because 13 Desk has a face. Who I see is here with us right now. So yeah, basically today we just talked about a lot of stuff that's related to crypto labor laws and how employees are not really protected, but there are recourses that we can do. Just like Derek said, there are lots of information that we have to know before we actually sign a contract with a company, and this really helps as someone who's working in the Web3 space. And I know that for sure a lot of our viewers are also planning to work in the Web3 space, or else they're not going to watch this. But I also heard a lot of information regarding what recruiters are looking for in the Web3 space, and it's quite different from what we normally looked for when it was still just Web2. So that's really good advice for people who are watching as well. Yeah, there are plenty of warning signs that we have to be aware of when it comes to working in the Web3 space. We know that it's very volatile. Like it's like working remotely has a risk as well. Like we can't just barge into the office and talk to our employers and find them if they're not paying anymore. It's very difficult when it comes to Web3, but at the same time it's rewarding. Like all of us mentioned, it has its pros, and mostly pros rather than cons. But what we really need now are clearer labor laws to protect us and to protect the future generations of employees in this field. So may I ask Derek to summarize his key takeaways for today's desk talk?
Sure. For those of you who are already working in the Web3 space, I hope you from this conversation that we've had today, I hope that you are aware of, some of the key points to take note of. For those who are thinking about entering the space, I would definitely encourage you to do so because it is super rewarding, like what Eunice just said. Once again, do look out for those red flags and be careful in your searches so that you know that the project you join is one that's going to, fulfill you both in a professional and personal capacity. And always remember, when you join this space, you are a pioneer. You're building the space for future generations. And if it all comes crashing down, well, at least you'll have fun stories for your next Web2 job interview. I think I'll leave it at that.
That's true. How about Don? Can I have your takeaways as well?
Well, I think that a lot of things have been more advanced compared to where we all started. I guess there are more and more things out there trying to protect people like us, whether you're in Web3 or you're doing something that's irrelevant to Web3 as well. It's a very exciting space. I have a lot of insightful conversations with very young builders, and if anyone were to ask me, I would say that if now is not the best time to join, then when waiting for BTC to hit 100 to 150, then you start deciding, okay, it's a good time. I think by the time you won't have the benefits that what many of the early joiners and builders are enjoying right now. That's what I think. And just be careful of what you sign up for, right? Do more research, and once you decided to go for it, don't think too much. Yeah.
And lastly, can we have YC's final thoughts?
Okay, I don't want to say something same as your closing. I think don't come into the crypto industry just because you like to work from home. You think you can sleep, and then you think you can have multiple jobs secretly, and then you think that you can travel. No, it's really not so easy. And it's a revolution period for crypto industry. The people in here must be ready to fight for decentralization. So it's not an enjoy time. So don't ever think that coming in here is fun, is enjoyable. It's actually a lot of work too. Yeah. So yeah, and that's all.
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining our desk talk for November. And I appreciate that the speakers really gave their best to address all the issues about crypto labor laws and crypto regulations. But as the Web3 space is evolving, we just need to urge that the government focus on labor regulations within Web3, because Web3 is inevitable. There are always going to be workers here. They keep on debating whether crypto should be legal or something, but they don't focus on the protection of the people who work in this field. So I think that is a good place to start. And we hope that as the industry matures, there are going to be clearer crypto regulations and labor laws to protect employees and employers alike. So thanks for joining us, everyone, and see you in the next Desk Talk. Bye!